You have found the Lines Injury Podcast for NFL Week 16. My name is Steven Andress, joined each and every week by Will Carroll at Injury Expert on Twitter. Typically, we do this on Fridays, but with the holiday weekend going a little bit earlier here, nevertheless, some big injury headlines for us to go through here, Will. And yet again, another major quarterback injury.
Yeah, we've had them all year long. We'll probably have them all season long, as we've seen this season, have more injuries, have big injuries, big names, big effect. It's been a lot, but you're looking quite festive there, Stephen.
I appreciate it. Got the little mock turtleneck, got my St. Andrews cap on here from the old course. So getting in the cold weather spirit over here. Nevertheless, we move forward here with trying to figure out what to do with these injuries. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, let us know in the comments what injuries have your eye, who you're betting on this week in the NFL. If you're watching us live on Twitter, hi. Thanks for stopping by. And we're going to go through these for you in real time. With most of the NFL slate on Saturday on Christmas Eve, you will get final injury reports on Thursday instead of Friday this week. But the 3 Sunday games on Christmas Day, you will still get injury reports on Friday. And of course, the Monday night game, the final injury report will come out on Saturday. So as we record this on Wednesday afternoon, we don't have final injury reports yet, but we have a pretty good indication of what's going on with a lot of these guys. And obviously the biggest headline is Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts. Will, the bettors and the professional bettors had this information before the insiders and the NFL guys put it out there, because this line moved quickly with the assumption that Jalen Hurts is not going to play. That's clearly what the line is telling us now, with this well past 3 points on the line. We're looking at 4.5, 5 right now. And that's, I think, either a comment on it's not that big of a drop off to Gardner Minshew, or just the fact that this is not 100% final that he's not going to play against the Cowboys. Although it seems like the opinion is it's more likely than not that he doesn't play. What can you tell us about the injury itself?
Yeah, with the line movement, I think that's indication of what the bettors are thinking rather than what the bettors know. A lot of people think, there's always inside information. There's not in a lot of cases. Talking to a lot of people around the league, the question is not whether this is a serious injury, but whether the context of the injury and the Eagles being up, Dallas losing last week, how much does this Dallas rivalry mean to the Eagles when they're looking long-term, if long-term is, the 6 weeks of the playoffs. So with Hurts, simple injury. He's got a shoulder separation. It's a grade 1 acromioclavicular sprain. It's right here. It's the small joint that goes between your shoulder and your collarbone. Obviously, if you just have arms, that doesn't move very much, and it shouldn't. Hurts fell to the ground, and when he did that, he landed pretty much laterally. And that shoulder has to go somewhere. So what unfortunately happens is it either goes backwards and stretches, or goes hard forward and almost comes out of that cup there, the glenoid fossa. Don't know which it was. You can't see that on tape. But it was just enough of a sprain that it swelled up. He's having a harder time lifting his arm. Obviously, it's going to affect his throwing. But there's just no way to protect this. Despite the fact that these guys are wearing big shoulder pads and better shoulder pads, there's a whole new brand of shoulder pads that's pretty much taken over the league. ESPN had a really good story on it a couple weeks ago. There's no protection from these lateral forces. So when you see guys land with their arm extended, either out or landing on their elbow, that force has to go somewhere. We've seen this over and over with shoulder sprains, labrum injuries. The worst is collarbone fractures. We saw that with Tony Romo. We saw that with Aaron Rodgers a couple of years ago. That force that's coming laterally, absent some kind of Iron Man suit, there's not anything we can do about this. For Hurts, the issue is it's going to happen again. He's going to get hit. Quarterbacks are going to fall. Even the best, even the most solid pockets, which he's not a pocket quarterback, you're going to get hit. You're going to get knocked down. At worst, you're going to get pushed after the play and fall. And we've seen guys get injured there as well. So, think back to Tua Tagovailoa when he got pushed and his head whipped down for that concussion. with this isn't going to be a long-term thing. It's going to be a question of function. First, can he throw? No one over the last couple of years, maybe ever, has gotten better with mechanics and accuracy than Jalen Hurts. He's turned himself from kind of a fringy quarterback that people had a lot of questions about to MVP front runner because of that accuracy. So if it throws off his mechanics, if he doesn't have the strength and the repeatability of that, you think about that more with a pitcher, but it's also important with quarterbacks. You wouldn't want him to get into another bad habit. The second is, do you want to risk him? It's a couple weeks to the playoffs. The Eagles are locked in. They've pretty much got that bye locked in, which would give them more time for him to rest. There's even a theory, and I've talked to a couple of people that asked me about this, and I simply don't know. Would they sit him out all the way through the bye? If Gardner Minshew goes out and looks good, I think you've got to think about it if he needs it. Again, this isn't the most significant sprain, so I don't know how long he's going to need to get back to a point where you're not worried about re-injuring that.
The clinching scenarios for the Eagles this week are pretty simple. They clinch the NFC East with a win or a tie over the Cowboys. They clinch home field advantage with a win or a tie. Whatever with the ties, honestly. But the Eagles.
We've almost had a bunch of those this year.
I know. There's been a lot, but whatever. We cross that bridge when we get to it. The Eagles clinch the division with a win. They clinch home field advantage with a win or a Vikings loss. So it's pretty simple at this point. If it doesn't happen this week, it's probably going to happen one of the next 2 weeks. A lot will have to happen because they have the head-to-head over the Minnesota Vikings right now, even if they did wind up tied with the same record there. So that's the situation and why they can be cautious, right? Yeah.
And teams really do focus on that bye. They buy into the idea that the rest is valuable. And I'm not sure if it's true. I don't know if we have enough data, especially given the changes in the playoff scenarios. But they definitely want that. And they're willing to risk some things for it. You see them playing guys deeper, which was really the idea. I can remember a couple of years ago when the Colts were going for the undefeated season, and they were like, I don't care, and sat half the team. I think it was against the Jets. They don't want that. The NFL wants its best players to play all the time. So I think it'll be interesting to see how, especially Nick Sirianni. He's a young coach. He doesn't have a huge track record at this stage. We don't know what his tendencies are in these situations because he simply hasn't been there. It's not like an Andy Reid or a Bill Belichick where we go, we know how he handles this. I'm really curious to see if Sirianni, a guy who has really come on in the last year and a half, really, as a head coach, being considered one of the top guys. I'm very curious to see how he handles this.
Yeah, for sure. I can say this with pretty complete confidence that if they win this game without Gardner Minshew or without Jalen Hurts and Gardner Minshew gets the win, you can lock up Nick Sirianni for coach of the year right now. He was minus 300 or more before this injury. He's dipped down to minus 150, minus 165. He's locked in if he wins this game. Now, the other betting advice I will give people, because we do not know 100% if Jalen Hurts is definitely going to sit in this game. You just heard Will say it's not a major injury, but the context surrounding the team is what might keep him out. We're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. If for whatever reason it gets announced that Jalen Hurts is going to play in this game, there are some actionable things you can do as a bettor to take advantage of that if you have a quick trigger and can get to your book on time or have multiple options and multiple sports betting accounts. Jalen Hurts was a favorite to win MVP before this injury news. He's gone all the way to plus 550 now to win the award. Now, I was of the opinion that Patrick Mahomes had the best stats even before this injury, and it was looking more and more likely that he would still win it. But I can't argue with the fact that if Jalen Hurts is actually playing in this game, even if he's playing hurt, that plus 550 is just the absolute wrong price for him to win MVP.
Yeah.
There would be value in that. The other side of this is obviously the spread. This line was 1.5 for the Cowboys before the injury. It's gone all the way up to 6 before some buyback. Now we're hovering around minus 4.5, minus 5. Obviously, if it comes out that Jalen Hurts is playing, that's going to dip all the way back down under 3. So you would want to have a quick trigger on the Eagles if you want to get closing line value in that case. But obviously, at this point in time, as you're watching this, it seems more likely than not that he's not going to play in this game.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think the point on Mahomes is interesting because there does seem to be some, I don't know if you want to call it fatigue. We're just used to Patrick Mahomes being magic. He does things every week, and we go, "Oh, look at that! Never seen that before." That crazy tip pass he had. He's always doing something, and the way he trains for it is pretty astounding. And did I mention that's a chapter in my book, The Science of Football?
There we go.
Where Bobby Stroop explains what he does. It was just absolutely astounding watching what he does to train for things. And there were drills that I saw down there at APEC in Fort Worth where it really is the kind of things he does. It's not just instinct. It's not just athleticism. It's partially training.
Okay, another big quarterback injury this week is Lamar Jackson. We talked about it a little bit last week, but it's time for an update here. He did not practice on Wednesday, as we kind of foreshadowed last week, Will, that the fact that his limited to no participation in practice last week is a bad sign that he might be able to get ready for this week. The spread in this game for the Ravens has them 7 to 8 point favorites, depending on where you look. That to me is closer to a Tyler Huntley line than it is a Lamar Jackson line. I think it would be closer to double digits if Lamar Jackson plays. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're not surprised by the lack of progress with Lamar Jackson as we get to another week here. This would be 3 weeks now if he doesn't play.
Yeah. It was said to be a 1 to 4 week injury at the start of this. And I was like, it would stun me to see him back in 1 week. That didn't happen. 2 weeks? Nope. Now we're here in week 3, and all indications are he's going to be out again. Yeah, he could Willis Reed this thing, come out of the tunnel, but there's no indication of that. The thing that worries me, and the thing that I've been watching for since day one, is when do we see him run? Now, I'm not saying he's not doing that behind the scenes. A lot of times it'll keep a guy who's limping or doing gait work behind the scenes. But he's not doing that in public, and that's what I'm waiting for. Even just a light jog. They haven't show ponied him. Is he doing something in the pool? Is he doing something on an Alter G, which is an anti-gravity treadmill? Is he just jogging back there, away from the press? We don't know. There's been no indication of this. There's been no leaks. There's been, nobody saying, "Oh, he's fine. He's running behind the scenes." We've got nothing, and that always worries me because that tells me. Maybe other players haven't seen him. Maybe he's only doing it in the physical therapy section. You never know with this, but it is still an unknown. And until we see this, I'm going to continue to think he's out. We remember what happened last year with him. He doesn't appear to be the fastest healer. This is certainly a different injury and one that can extend out. We've seen PCL sprains go as long as 8 weeks in the NFL. Different position, different players, all sorts of different contexts. But I think the other thing we have to keep in mind here is that, holy cow, that Ravens training room is full. Mm-hmm. They lost Devin Duvernay for the season and the playoffs with a fractured foot. Dobbins has had issues with his knee. Nothing unusual. I'm certainly not blaming anybody for that. But they've just been beaten down and beaten down. And when you see that many people with injuries, that means that the medical staff, they don't suddenly grow more hours. They don't suddenly hire more guys. There's only so many man hours, or woman hours, I'll just say man hours, in the day. There's only so much you can do. And if you're having to go through and do more and more rehab, do more and more work with the guys who you're trying to get back, you're not doing the preventive work. And so guys get worn down a little bit more and you go into this death spiral. And that really seems to be where it is. Now, again, I'm not blaming the medical staff here. So many of their injuries are, Dobbins had a normal common complication for a knee surgery. Lamar Jackson has a knee sprain. Those happen all over the place. We're right in the high end of what we see with ACLs, which are kind of my bellwether for injury count. Duvernay, he takes a wrong step and his foot snaps. Those kind of things are just crazy. But with Jackson, we just have no indication of where he is, that he's made progress. And at that 1 to 4 weeks that they gave us at the start, what happens if he goes past 4? Huntley has been the guy we expected. Now we've got to see, do they get Jackson back to push into the playoffs? Do they get Jackson back if they make the playoffs? Because that really, really changes the team.
I have no idea whether this is a factor or not, but I'll at least note it that he's in the final year of his deal, does not have a long-term deal locked up. He's his own agent. The Ravens surely could just franchise tag him next year if they wanted to, but he has no financial security at this point. So if you were him, we've seen this with other players, wouldn't surprise me in the least if he's in no rush to get back and play less than 100%.
Yeah, I would say that probably factors in somewhat, but he's probably hurting himself a little bit by being out. He's missed significant time the last couple of years with relatively major injuries. Worst comes to worst, that PCL snaps, you can fix that the same way you can fix an ACL. They're not quite as common just because of the mechanics of it. I don't think that factors in highly. He's going to get franchised. Everybody in the world knows he's not going anywhere else, and he's going to be expensive. So when you take a look at the Wilson contract, the Watson contract, there's going to be some rich quarterbacks over the next couple of years.
Those two, by the way, not the poster child for good salary cap management. Let me just begin with at the moment, but that's a discussion for another podcast.
But it's the going rate. If you look back at the Kirk Cousins deal where everybody freaked out, that one's actually been okay. Yeah. Kirk Cousins isn't all world, but he's been there. He's been fine. And finding that kind of franchise level quarterback is difficult. Just ask the Colts.
Yeah, but just to wrap up on the Ravens, to your point, a lot of key injuries here. Again, just beginning of the week injury report, the guys that are not rest related: Calais Campbell, defensive end with a knee injury, DNP. We mentioned Duvernay now out for the year. We mentioned Lamar Jackson. Marcus Peters, their top corner, also has a calf injury. He was a DNP on Tuesday as well. So that's an injury report to monitor. I don't have a strong opinion right now on this game, but I'm not sure I want to lay 7.5 points with Tyler Huntley in this Ravens offense right now. The problem is the Falcons trotted out a NFL debut quarterback who threw for less than 4 yards per attempt, less than 100 yards passing. They did run the ball extremely well, but I got to dig back into my metrics here. But last time I checked, the Ravens are one of, if not the best run-stopping defenses in the league. So final answer on this on the Megapod, which we'll be recording on Thursday afternoon, will be available over the weekend. But it's an interesting line there with a struggling offense still getting more than a touchdown in this game. Surprising to me, to say the least, but perhaps warranted.
Yeah, this one feels like I look at that under and I say, that's automatic. Wait, I hate ones that seem so easy because I start thinking, what does Vegas know that I don't know?
They don't know anything. Let me stop you there. They don't know anything extra than what the professional bettors are telling you. So the professional bettors out there that are helping form these lines are telling you that they still like the Ravens this week, whether it's Tyler Huntley or not, and they're willing to lay more than a touchdown. But last week, Will, I sent out a tweet at the end of the week. The 5 games with the most line movement were all wrong. And the sharp bettors lost a lot of money. So that's one of the biggest things we preach on our shows here is that Vegas doesn't know anything more than what the bettors are telling them. And sometimes they get it wrong, believe it or not.
Yeah, exactly. This is one where I think they do, but I always worry when I think they do.
Fair enough. Ryan Tannehill for the Tennessee Titans continues to battle ankle injuries. They have lost 4 straight games. They have tanked to the point where the Jacksonville Jaguars are now on their heels in the division. Only a game back, and the Jags have the head-to-head. What is going on with Ryan Tannehill's ankle, and how worried are you about it?
I'm worried in the sense that I think there's something more going on here than what they're telling us. I always hate when we get these post-mortem stories about, oh, look at how tough this guy was playing through this terrible injury. You know, if the day after the Titans season ends, we hear that Tannehill's got to go have surgery, won't surprise me at all. I think there's something more going on with that ankle. I think that they've been bracing him through this. When he came back in last week's game, having been carted off with the injury and then coming back with, oh my God, looked like either there was a big brace under all that tape or there were about 20 rolls of tape on that ankle. It looked like an elephant leg. They've just got to be doing so much. I think back to one of the most graphic injuries I can remember, which was probably 5-6 years ago. Leonard Fournette was with the Jaguars. It tells you how long ago it was. The Jaguars were in the playoffs and Leonard Fournette was there. But he was running, rolled his ankle over, and basically his shin touched the side, all the way to the ground. And then he got taped up and came back because he had a history of ankle injuries. Steph Curry is the same way until he had surgery to basically suspender up his ankles. Those ankles, the ligaments get loose. If you sprain it over and over and over, it's just not tight anymore. It's flopping around. That's bad. You don't want that. So I think he's doing this over and over. He's exacerbating the injury, making it worse, never letting it heal up. Even with the 2 weeks off he had, I think they realized this thing's just not going to get better. And again, surgery could be down the line for that. It's a much more common procedure over the last decade. This is one where you can see it. I went back after last week and tried to find that interim between that initial ankle injury in October. He missed a couple of games. When he came back, was he having problems? Yes. It's less when he's passing, but he's throwing the ball away more. He's throwing the ball short more. He's having trouble getting the ball outside to Derrick Henry. You don't think about that. Everybody, if you didn't play
like kind
football,
of those stretch off tackle handoffs is what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Where he's having to reach to get out there. You're really seeing. There was one play where I thought he actually kind of tossed it, and that's the last thing you want. Derrick Henry is sure-handed, and they've got a good mesh, but it's definitely showing that he's having some issues, and you've got to think they're coming from that ankle. So is he going to play? Yeah. Is he going to have problems? Yeah. Could he go out again like we saw last week? Absolutely. It's a risk, and the Titans are struggling. They don't have a GM. They don't seem like they can do much with Derrick Henry. A couple weeks ago, they just abandoned him after a huge first half, and then the second half, he barely touched the ball. He's taken a lot of hits. That's the other thing is everybody goes, just hand the ball to Henry. He's still human. And he's had some injuries along the way as well. Running backs don't tend to have long careers, and if they take this kind of abuse, they get really, really short. So I think they're having to watch out for that as well. If you can stack the box, you're seeing 7, 8 creeping in with Derrick Henry, because I think they know they don't have to worry about the mobility of Tannehill in the same way we haven't seen with Lamar Jackson.
You've hit the nail on the head, Will. Brett Colson, our director, talked about this on Gridiron Gamble last week. I talked about it on the Megapod. Everybody still wants to look at the Titans and say, well, when they play a team that can't stop the run, they're going to be okay because they have Derrick Henry. The Titans can't run the ball.
Yeah.
They have not run the ball well for the past month. They've been bottom 20 in the league in EPA and success rate running the ball for the past month. They don't have anything that's dangerous on offense right now when you combine that with Tannehill's ankle. And this game is the poster child for why everybody out there, if they're not currently in the Lines Discord channel, needs to be in there, because we put out a bet last week on the look ahead line to take the Texans plus 8.5 in this game. And as we record right now, it's all the way down to 4. Massive closing line value we're getting right now on this game. Do all closing line value plays hit? No, but we are ahead of the curve here on what we needed to bet on in this game. We were ahead of the market on it, and we're sitting pretty right now with a Texans plus 8.5 ticket. If you're not in the Lines Discord channel, go to the homepage, top right-hand corner, hit the Discord icon, then go to the rules channel, I'm sorry, the Rolls channel, not the rules, the Rolls channel. You hit the emojis for which person on our staff you want to get alerts from. Just hit all of them. And every time one of us locks in a bet, you'll get a push notification with that number. Texans plus 8.5 last week was one of them.
That's a nice one.
And we're looking good right now. So we'll see what happens here. But they're struggling in all kinds of different ways, and they're not healthy. Just looking at the Titans injury report here, a lot of guys DNP or limited on Tuesday, a laundry list of guys, including Jeffrey Simmons, who's still limited with an ankle, their best defensive player.
One thing I would watch out for there with the Tennessee list and with a lot of lists, we saw a lot of teams going with extra rest this week because of the short week. I haven't looked to see whether or not the teams playing Sunday or the two on Monday, whether they've done the same sort of thing, because that's more of a normal week. But in the past, on short weeks, whether it's Thursday games, whether it's Saturday games, we have seen teams willing to rest more players, and I think you have to take that into account. If you see guys sitting out Tuesday, even Wednesday, it doesn't suddenly mean they're more hurt than normal. It means you have to take a harder look and say, is this a short week? Is this an injury that they're struggling through and working the rehab?
They might get Treylon Burks back, their top rookie receiver. He was a full participant. He's going through the concussion protocol. But to your
he should be back.
That's a great point by you, though. You know, the first day of the injury report is the least important. Like, you have to monitor it at the end of the week on the final injury report. You know, obviously all we have as we record right now is the first day. So monitor it. The Titans are a team with a long list that you need to check on, because if all these guys are out, they won't be. But if last week they had 7 guys out, if it's like that again on top of Tannehill's ankle injury, that's a major problem for the Titans, even if they are playing the Houston Texans here.
Absolutely. The Tuesday injury report is I know guys in front offices call that the surprise report. All you're looking for is the guys who was like, oh, I didn't realize he got hurt on Sunday.
Right.
Or he's not recovering well. So that's what you're looking for on Tuesday.
Boxing Day football, Monday Night Football. The Chargers and the Indianapolis Colts. Colts lose Jonathan Taylor. They make the switch from Matt Ryan to Nick Foles now, and it's been one-way action here on the line. 2.5 on the look ahead. This is another one we put in the Discord channel last week. We're sitting on Chargers minus 2.5 right now. The line is minus 4.5 or 5. Stay tuned to the Megapod. I might try and middle this game if we're all the way up to 5 now. But I'm not sure Nick Foles is a downgrade from Matt Ryan at this point. That's a different conversation. The point, though, is Jonathan Taylor has a high ankle sprain and he's done for the year.
Yeah, they put him on IR, so it's official. Simple high ankle sprain, at this stage of the season, you hear a season-ending injury. It doesn't mean the same as if something happened in week 1 or week 2. It's a 3-4 week high ankle sprain. He'll be fine. He's just not going to be fine in time for them to play. And there's utterly no reason for them to play him anyway. I think the interesting thing with the Colts is Taylor's had a terrible year. Put some of that on him, puts a lot of it on the offense, put a lot of it on the fact that offensive line has been terrible. The interesting thing to me is when Taylor's been out, the running game has stayed the same. Now, I think the world of Jonathan Taylor. I think he's one of the good young running backs. I think you have to put him with Saquon Barkley and maybe a few others. Austin Eckler's not the same, but he's a top running back to be sure. I think the thing you have to look at is sometimes in systems, those guys like Zach Moss and Deion Johnson, who are not nearly as talented, can put up the same kind of production. Last week, when Taylor went out early, it was a weird game, obviously, a historically weird game. But those guys put up almost exactly the same numbers. Now, they did it as a tandem rather than Jonathan Taylor taking 20, 25 carries. They weren't involved at all in the passing game. But I don't think this is as significant a downgrade as a lot of people do. Obviously, I think it's a downgrade. But I think, especially at the running back position, there's a floor of talent level you have to be in the NFL. And if you have that inside a system, you can do that. I think the thing that could throw this off completely is Foles. I've got no faith at all that he's going to come in there. He's got some upside. But I thought Foles was brought in just because Frank Reich owes him for that Super Bowl ring. This might be the Colts not wanting to give up that second round pick to the Falcons. Who knows? A lot of factors here. So many changes. Jeff Saturday hasn't fixed anything. There's rampant speculation that Jim Harbaugh is coming back and will be the Colts coach next year. I don't believe that's going to be the case. It's just a mess with Indianapolis. But I don't think the Taylor injury is going to be nearly as impactful, especially in this game, as a lot of people do.
For what it's worth, Nick Foles told local reporters today he hasn't taken a single snap with the starters all season long, including training camp. So
poor Sam Ehlinger. They just need to go ahead and cut him because they've moved him around. And if they're saying he's a worse quarterback than Foles on 2 games, he just needs to find a new place.
You're there in Indy, Will. Am I way off here that Jeff Saturday's still trying to win games? And that's why he's putting Foles in over Ehlinger?
Yeah, I think so. I'm curious, he wasn't there when Ehlinger was playing, so I don't know what his assessment is. Obviously, he was watching the way the rest of us were.
Yeah, I don't think you have to be an NFL expert to know Sam Ehlinger looked out of his depth.
He did, but it's not like Matt Ryan looked any better. I don't think they put Ehlinger in a good situation. That team was a mess. It was going downhill. Reich knew he was on the way out. If they're telling you which quarterback to start, you're on the way out.
Yep.
The thing I wonder about is you put Jeff Saturday, who is beloved in Indianapolis. I mean he's kind of the Robin to Peyton Manning's Batman. You should probably have their statues somewhere close to each other. This is a beloved figure. You put him in a bad situation. It's not like he was going to go suddenly turn this team around. Nobody believed that. It's not like coaches around the league liked this. You put him with a play caller that had never called plays, a defensive coordinator that basically quit on him. This is just a bad situation all around. Not to mention Bubba Ventrone, who should have been the interim coach and is probably the most likely next head coach. I don't think Saturday keeps that job. What worries me is that you've taken a beloved figure and the best possible outcome is going 0-9. I don't get why Jim Irsay would put him in that position, but that's got little or nothing to do with gambling. They're going to get dog walked by the Chargers.
I'm just saying, don't be surprised if Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles is at least competitive. I'm
wouldn't stun me at all. The Colts defense showed last week that they can put up numbers. I think the world of Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's to me the best young quarterback in the game. I take him over everybody save Patrick Mahomes. And I'm thinking about that statement. Yeah. I mean, I like Jalen Hurts a lot, but I would still want Herbert as more the classic quarterback. I just don't see them being able to do what they did last week. The Chargers don't make the same mistakes.
Other big injury this week is the Browns running back Nick Chubb. And most weeks we wouldn't care about a running back injury, especially one where the backup is Kareem Hunt. But he's playing in a game with 50-mile-an-hour winds and crazy cold temperatures to the point where the Wildcat quarterback for his opponent might be the one taking the majority of the snaps with Taysom Hill pairing up with Alvin Kamara in the backfield. I mean, this is looking like potentially an Army-Navy game with a total in the low 30s, lowest total in more than a decade in the NFL. Maybe similar to that Bills-Patriots game we saw last year where Mac Jones only threw the ball 3 times. Mm-hmm. What do you know about this Nick Chubb foot injury? Because he was a DMP, and that was a surprise, to use your term, on the first injury report. Yeah,
it really was. We don't know anything about this. I've made some calls this morning and couldn't get a whole lot out of it. To me, that usually tells me that there's not a whole lot to it. I'm not that worried about it. When there's not a specific thing, I've got enough sources around the league that I usually can get an indication of what it is. Is this a bruise? Is this something that's been sore? Is it something like a plantar fasciitis? I think his feet are just sore. I couldn't even get an indication of it's one foot or the other. My best source there kept saying feet. So it's one of those situations where I think he'll be back. This is more like a little yellow flag going, hey, watch Chubb this week. The other thing to keep in mind here is, a couple of years ago when Kareem Hunt came back from being cut, deservedly so, and got the chance to back up Chubb. The thought was, man, you've got two number ones. That hasn't played out. Hunt has been a different kind of back from Chubb, and they've been playing different roles. So much like you see a lot of, thunder and lightning, big and little, power and speed kind of combinations. This is more that than really the 1 and 1A that a lot of people thought Chubb and Hunt would be. I think it's really smart to have that kind of depth. I think it's really smart to have different kind of running backs. But don't think if Chubb is out, and again, I don't think Chubb will be out, that Hunt just steps in and does the same sorts of things. I don't have a really good read on what that offense with Deshaun Watson is. I think it's really intriguing that they're using Jacoby Brissett more, especially, he's a bigger guy, so you use him on sneaks and short yardage plays. But I just don't have a handle on what that offense is going to be. And that makes Chubb and Hunt
3 yards in a cloud of dust with this weather.
Yeah,
3
that's
yards
the
in a cloud of dust.
We're gonna see a tough one there. We're gonna see a tough one in Chicago. Why is you would think Buffalo's used to this, but I don't think any human is used to the kind of weather we're about to see. I haven't been
Chubb, by the way, just seeing this now, it just came in as we've been recording. Nick Chubb did miss a second straight day of practice on Wednesday. Quote, hope so, in terms of whether he thinks he'll play.
Yeah, this is one, I'm not one to recommend Twitter, but follow me on Twitter at Injury Expert. This is one I'll be watching all week right up to game time.
There we go. Devin Duvernay out for the year. I'm going to skip
simple
that
broken
one.
foot. Yeah, simple broken foot. He took a wrong step. I'm told it's a Jones fracture, which is the outside. Those heal up very well. You put a screw in it, go on with life.
One of the worst.
Haven't confirmed it's Jones yet, though.
Okay, but big headline. He's out for the year, and one of the worst.
Yeah, he's out for the year. He'll be back for next year. It'll be fine. Bones healed.
Tyler Lockett for the wide receiver core of the Seahawks. Yeah. That's kind of an important one.
It is. It's a really important one. They have Metcalf, who's a big target. Geno Smith has been good, though fading. I think teams have gotten tape on him and been able to adjust a little bit. But Lockett's a weird one. You can't go out there and just Ronnie Lott this thing and chop off a finger and still catch the ball. I guess maybe you could, but I don't recommend trying it. There are two things.
Seems like a last resort, Will.
Yeah, one would hope. There's two things to know here. First is that it's his index finger, which you have to think is involved in it. You just try to squeeze a ball. It's going to it's going to come in on your index finger. It's the tip of his finger, and it's a spiral fracture. I'm still trying to figure out how that happened. Normally, you see that with falls, but it's you see it in kids that fall off bikes or skateboards.
Is that kind of like the crunching of a can kind of situation?
Like, a little bit, yeah. That's what I've been thinking.
Going this way as opposed to like straight down a bone. It's like
it twists around. I think he tipped it, which is goes straight down and slammed into the turf or a helmet. Sometimes you'll see that with quarterbacks that hit a helmet and they'll break a finger, but that's an impact and it snaps rather than twists. So I don't know exactly how it happened. Doesn't matter. They pinned it back together. They're waiting for it to heal and he'll get back out there. The other thing that you have to figure is quarterbacks throw the ball remarkably hard. This isn't just the Josh Allens of the world. Quarterbacks have to have a little touch, but even these touch passes have a ton of velocity on them. So you can't go out there and numb up your finger and catch. So he's going to have to go out there and accept the pain of a finger that's not healed, that's pinned together. If you go all the way back, I'll show my age here. I was at the Senior Bowl when Rick Mirer was one of the top quarterback prospects, and he didn't have the career a lot of people had, but he was still a valid quarterback. I was standing near a bunch of scouts and coaches, and the ball comes went over the head of his receiver. I'm standing on the sidelines. It's coming over our head, and out of instinct, I just reach up. And stupid. Don't do this, because what it did is it just ripped the skin off the top of my finger. The medical term is degloved, but literally this entire section from the knuckle up, just the skin came off, like taking off a glove.
Rick Meyer's ball did that to you?
Rick Meyer's ball did that to me. And Rick Meyer was not great. He was not
That's
the big
story.
armed. Yeah,
I mean, he's the number 2 pick in the 1993 NFL draft, so he wasn't nobody coming out of college.
Who was the other guy? The Patriots guy that.
I'll look it up while you're finishing the story. But
but let me tell you, that was shocking and reminds me why these guys wear gloves. And it just makes me think Tyler Lockett's going to have a harder time coming back from this than he's going to want to. I admire it. You go back to Ronnie Lott cutting his finger off for the Super Bowl. But Lockett's a big deal. DK Metcalf, as big as he is, as fast and strong as he is, they need a second target there for Geno Smith. They're down to their 12th running back, it seems like. And Uncle Pete is going to have just a hard time putting everything together without Lockett this week. I think it's really going to affect their offense.
1993 NFL Draft. Seattle Seahawks select Rick Meyer with the 2nd overall pick, quarterback out of Notre Dame.
Was it Bledsoe?
Number 1 was Drew Bledsoe, New England Patriots out of Washington State.
Yeah, I just remember Bino Cook pounding the table for Rick Meyer from about the time he was a high school sophomore and getting to see him there and getting firsthand, literally, info on how hard he threw.
Love it. Chargers defense has played really well the past couple of weeks. We can have another conversation about the offense and what that looked like against the Titans, but Chargers defense has looked pretty damn solid the past couple of weeks. They've continued to get healthier and healthier. Derwin James is really the last puzzle piece here. Their best player. He's been dealing with a quad injury.
Yeah, a simple quad injury, and he is so fast, so quick. Obviously, you have to be to cover, and he's that hybrid kind of guy. He can come forward and really pop somebody. These guys don't normally have long careers, but they have exciting careers, and Derwin James has been that guy. Now, remember, they've lost Bosa all season long. Was it week 1 where he went out with the ACL? Yeah, so this hasn't been a complete defense most of the season. I think Brandon Staley has been able to, patch here and there. But you're right. This is a defense that's getting better and better, an offense that I really, really like. If you add Derwin James to that defense and they play Nick Foles on Monday night on turf, oh boy, again, that line looks
You're starting to convince me.
Yeah.
I think you're seeing what the Sharps saw to move this from 2.5 all the way out to 5.
Exactly. I don't normally think even a top defender, absent one of those shutdown corners, it just doesn't often happen. We've seen occasionally a pass rusher can be that big a difference. But I think Derwin James might be in this week, in this context, against that bad an offense. I think Derwin James is going to be a big factor, and I'll be very curious to watch that game. And it's not an easy game to watch, I think.
Yeah, fair. Not the best way to cap off Christmas weekend if you're a Colts fan, probably. But we don't have an injury report yet on that game, as it's Monday Night Football. The first injury report comes out on Thursday for Monday Night Football games. But Derwin James did not practice all week last week and was ruled out. So if he gets any type of practice participation, that will show improvement for him.
I'm watching for him to be practicing today. Haven't seen those West Coast as we record, but they basically ruled him out last week. So he didn't practice. They knew he wasn't going to play early, but they've been aiming towards this for a lot of reasons. But I am virtually assured that he's going to play and play near 100%. I don't think they'll pitch count him.
For what it's worth, he was listed as questionable despite DNPs all week and went through a pregame warm-up where he was trying to open up a little bit, did some wind sprints on the field pregame, but didn't play.
I didn't understand that because everything I had been told is there was very little chance he was going to play. They were aiming towards this week. I thought they were aiming towards this week because they thought it'd be an easier game. They could ease him back in and make sure he's ready for the playoffs, but that doesn't appear to be the case.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sorry. I misspoke. He did play against the Titans. He was active against the Titans. I don't know how many snaps he played. What am I seeing here? Hang on a second. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He was inactive. I just completely misread what I'm looking at here. Busy week here on Christmas. Mine's a little foggy. I'm sorry. I'm gonna need some more eggnog, and I'm talking about the adult version here in a little bit. He was inactive against the Titans. Monitor his practice participation. He did go through a pregame warm-up, although he was still inactive for that game. So keep an eye on that for Derwin James. Will, I just want to go through a couple of the names coming in here on the wire in terms of injury news before we wrap up, see if you have any thoughts on any of them. Let's see here. A couple Titans updates here. Treylon Burks is practicing again as we expected. Ryan Tannehill, another DNP for him with the ankle. Russell Wilson, full go out of concussion protocol there. So he's good to go. It will be Trace McSorley starting for the Arizona Cardinals, not Colt McCoy. That line has moved from 3.5 all the way out to 7.5. They are hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week. Not great news for Arizona.
Those are two talented teams that just haven't been able to put together an offense this year. Who thought we'd see Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers age the same year?
Yeah, 39.5 is the over-under, and I tend to agree with you there. That might be the way I play that one if I'm looking for a Christmas Day bet. That is the Sunday Night Football game, God help us, on Christmas Day. Maybe a little couple extra eggnogs there going into that one. Let's see, any other Wednesday news here before we wrap up? Jalen Hurts was not spotted at practice Wednesday, so again, trending towards not playing, but keep an eye on it. The only other one I'll mention here for Thursday Night Football, Trevor Lawrence is questionable with a toe injury, but we've seen this the past couple of weeks, right? Yeah. Well, he's fine.
Yeah, he's fine. I don't think that's going to be an issue for him. The other one that I've been watching is Kenny Pickett. He's heading towards being cleared, has not been cleared from the protocol yet, but all signs are that he's going to do that. He's going through the steps, and even with the short week, which worried a lot of people, Pickett, I think, is going to clear, and if he clears, he will start.
And another report here, just to wrap things up, Tom Pelissero from NFL Network, quote, uphill battle for Ryan Tannehill to play against the Houston Texans. So that's why we've seen this crash even more. 8.5 on the look ahead all the way down to 4. So it may be Malik Willis this week, Will.
Yeah, that would be huge. That one's going to be tough because we've seen him come back in game. I would think the medical staff with that much time would be able to get him back. That indicates that this is going to be problematic for him through the next couple of weeks. So if you want to do the look ahead, those numbers might need to move a little bit as well, especially that Week 18 matchup in Jacksonville, which could be for the division.
For sure. I believe this is also, let me see if there's look aheads out yet for the Titans game. They are playing the Cowboys on Thursday Night Football. Look ahead line is Cowboys -3 or -3.5. The game at Tennessee.
I hadn't realized that was a Thursday game, so that is going to factor in again.
Yeah, so I'd be shocked if that line is 3.
If Tannehill's out for this week, I cannot see him playing in the following week, even though it's just as important.
And if somehow he does, not well, right?
Yeah,
with that ankle.
I'm very curious to know. I think we'll find out at the end of the season that he was playing on some sort of ruptured tendon, some sort of ruptured ligament, and that's the reason for all this. But we'll see whether Malik Willis has to pick it up.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that Malik Willis started the other game against the Texans earlier this year, threw exactly 10 passes in the game for 55 yards because they had Derrick Henry be able to run for 219 yards and 2 touchdowns on 32 carries, and they won the game 17-10. So
Henry does own the Texans.
Yeah, I mean, the Texans don't have any talent to stop anybody, so it's an option to go one-way offense, one-dimensional offense here like they did last time. It's very clear to me and a lot of other members on our staff that Malik Willis is not ready to play in a real NFL offense, and that's exactly the way they trotted him out there the first time against the Texans. Yeah. So 17-10 final in that game. Just final nugget here. The over under for that Texans game now is 36 is the total.
Yeah, I knew that one was low, and it feels a little too low for even with a Willis versus Davis game, Davis Mills.
Yeah.
It's last week's game where the Texans took the Chiefs to overtime. You can't overlook that, but you can't overread that one. They had a really good game. The same way the Colts had a really good kind of, I don't want to say lucky. They played well in the first half at least. Same thing. The Texans aren't a horrible football team. They're just not a winning football team. Howard Cosell gave us Any Given Sunday all those years ago for a reason, and it still holds true. I don't think this will be a really tough game to watch. The Texans are probably going to fire Lovie Smith and start all over again. They'll have just a load of picks to do that. I'll be curious to see what Nick Caserio does with it. But this week, it's one of those things where if Tannehill is out, things could get crazy. You never know what's going to happen with those crazy Texans.
All right, everybody, that's all the time we have for this week's episode of the Lines Injury Podcast. For the rest of your bets, you can go to thelines.com. All our content is always free. Again, hit the Discord button in the top right-hand corner. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let us know in the comments who you are betting on this week. But for Will Carroll, I'm Steven Andress. Thank you so much for watching. Happy holidays to everybody out there. Stay safe. Enjoy the football. And we will see you next week.